News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset.
Trump will take this, spin it, spread the misinformation, disinformation on it, so it's a win for them.
He's on the ballot, and voters will vote, and he looks like he's headed to become the Republican nominee for president.
You can't save a people from themselves. If they're determined to reelect him after he organized that insurrection, then there's nothing to stop the people from doing that.
Oh, these poor people. All right, I want to have on Lauren Bowman, who is with the Public Interest Legal Foundation. She's the Director of Communications and Engagement. Lauren, thanks for joining us again on the Chris Crock Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hello.
Hi, thanks for having me on.
Good to have you on. You guys filed an amicus brief, the Public Interest Legal Foundation. Tell me what that was about, and tell me what happened today at the Supreme Court from your perspective.
Right. So we filed a brief before the court on Trump's behalf saying that the Constitution lays out specific requirements to be president, which includes age, citizenship, and that the president isn't from the same state as the vice president, and that states can't go around adding additional qualifications for federal office. And today, in the court's unanimous opinion, which your listeners are probably in shock, 9-0, they all agree
yeah.
that what these radical bureaucrats in Colorado and in Maine were doing was unconstitutional, and that Trump's going to be allowed on the ballot for the primaries, and then, of course, in November. So,
Lauren, what do you say to these leftists who are saying 5-4? It was 5-4. What is that about?
Right. So the court agreed overall totally that the actions were unconstitutional, but they can go down through different reasonings, which is what they do. But 9-0, they agreed that it's unconstitutional, the action that was taken, that no state can pass additional qualifications for someone to run for federal office. And we're not just talking about president here. There were cases where they were trying to use this to challenge certain congressional members in Pennsylvania from being on the ballot.
Unbelievable.
Right. So this was a big, there was a lot at stake here. It wasn't just for President Trump. It was for a lot of candidates across the country. And they've unanimously 9-0 said no more qualifications. That's not how this works. The 14th Amendment was actually meant to take powers away from the states following the Civil War, not to empower them where they can be handpicking the election based on one radical bureaucrat.
Why do you think some of these leftist, radical media people and Democrats convinced themselves that this was going to fly? What's that? What do you think that's all about?
Right. For some reason, Trump has increasingly led liberals to violate constitutional and institutional norms. I mean, we've seen this from his 2 impeachments to all the prosecutions that are going on now, and then to this effort to remove him from the ballot. They just can't stand him, and they're afraid that the voters will elect him. And this was their only way that they thought they could keep him out. And they don't see what's coming ahead when they do this, how dangerous this is, how someone in a red state could say, let's not put Biden on the ballot. But that's why we have the Supreme Court. They're supposed to be removed from the passions of us and to really judge and protect the Constitution. And that's what they did here. You know, they rose above partisan politics and restored stability to our constitutional system.
So Lauren Bowman with the Public Interest Legal Foundation, they filed an amicus brief on behalf of President Trump in the case that he won today with the Colorado Supreme Court trying to take him off the ballot. What's next? I mean, we have several legal cases that are next, but if you want to hit that, but also in general, what's next? And what do you think they're going to try to do next?
Right. So the next case that the Supreme Court will probably most likely be involved with is this presidential immunity, that he is arguing that certain acts that you commit when you're president, you're immune from criminal prosecution. That is the next big case that the court will have to weigh in on. But I do think what we've seen here is the court's kind of shown that electing the president is a political question. They don't want to be involved in deciding political questions or having individual courts in different states deciding the election. They want the American people to decide these political questions. So I think that's what this ruling is kind of foreshadowing, is a bunch of that will be happening as more and more of these cases continue to make their way through the legal system.
Are you guys expecting at the first Public Interest Legal Foundation, are you guys expecting other tricks to pop up over the next several months leading up to the November election? against Trump?
We're constantly on the look. I mean, not just attacks against him, but even last minute, let's change the law.
Yes.
Or we're going to suspend the law. We're not going to enforce voter ID at the polls. We're instructing our poll workers we don't need to do that. Stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We are constantly on the lookout. We always tell people, if you see something, call us. We will be there on the ground. But that's what we're really concerned about as we go, because that's what we saw in 2020. It was just, let's suspend, let's not follow the law. And we can't let that happen again.
Lauren, do you think we have enough lawyers on our side all over the country to fight these things they're going to try to pull?
I will say it's always a challenge to find lawyers, especially election lawyers that do this. It's such a specialty field, and in the past it has been totally dominated by the left before 2020. It was something that after 2000 they really beefed up, and they've gotten involved with it, and that's why we've seen so much of this lobbying, and we really do on our side have to beef up. And a lot has happened since 2020. People have been attracted to this issue on our side. They've realized how important it is. And I think we're in a way better place than we were in 2020. But we need more young people, especially, go to these law schools. They're super radical. They're not going to teach you conservative law. But we have to send our people and get more lawyers, because they really do help win these fights in ways that people doing other professions just can't.
Lauren, in addition to you being with the Public Interest Legal Foundation, previously you were with President Trump's communications team at the White House, and we're also with his reelection campaign. So you have a political angle as well as a legal one from your experience. With Biden and the Democrats, I literally, and this is probably naive the way I say this, but I literally realized today fully after President Trump gave his very well done speech calmly and everything, and basically said, Joe, you're afraid, be a man basically, and fight your fights for yourselves. Do you think that Joe Biden and the Democrats are literally afraid today with this victory, and would you be if you were them and Joe?
Right. I think they are afraid to run against him, or they never would have tried to remove him from the ballot in the first place if they thought they could beat him. So clearly they're afraid. They know that President Biden has been a weak, ineffective leader. He has not left the Americans better off than they were when President Trump was in office. And we see his mental capacity just diminishing every day. He's not able to even complete sentences and walk places from point A to point B without being dragged and told.
Right.
And that's just not going to fly on a debate stage against Donald J. Trump.
Lauren Bowman, last case with the Public Interest Legal Foundation, the New York City case, the Florida case, the D.C. case, the Atlanta case. Do you think any of these, from what you've heard from your legal experts at Public Interest Legal Foundation, do you think any of these are likely to be adjudicated by November election time? And which case or cases are the ones you guys are thinking Trump should be most concerned about?
Right. We find it very unlikely that they'd be able to be completed by November, just by the way the legal process works. It's slow. There's appeals. It's not just decided on one. But that big one that's coming up that people are probably going to be hearing the most about in the news is the presidential immunity. The Supreme Court has said they're going to take that up, and they will hear the arguments on that. But even after that's decided, it's a procedural issue in a larger case. It goes back down. So it's going to keep going on, and I do not expect this to be decided, all these cases, by November on Election Day. Not even one, probably, is what your guesstimation is? Right. Not even one is good. What we are thinking. And, that's good news for the former president.
And for the people. Let us decide.
Yeah. Yeah, that's exactly what polls show. They don't want the courts to decide. So we're going to be at Election Day before you know it. So,
you are a fantastic spokesperson for the Public Interest Legal Foundation. You are a native North Texan, and with a proud dad who listens to this show, which makes me proud. And if you go back to the Trump team for 2024 and beyond, we'd like to have you on regularly, but also as a member of the Public Interest Legal Foundation. Thank you, Lauren Bowman. You're awesome. Appreciate you.
Thanks for having me on.
All right, thank you. There she goes. Well done. Very well done. And coming up next, I want to get into the appeals court. They ruled allowing Texas immigration law that we have to arrest the illegals to stand, but then an hour, 2 or 3 later, the U.S. Supreme Court pushed that on hold again. I'll explain what to make of this all, and I want to talk to you as well and ask you a few questions about, do you think Texas, is winning the war and the narrative against the Democrats in this illegal invasion? And do you think the country overall is with us as well here in Texas? That's next on the Chris Crock Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.
I've never had one conversation with the president or the vice president for that matter. And so I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem.
Yeah, there you go. Former Border Patrol Chief Raul Ortiz says not once did Joe Biden or Kamala call him, talk to him, acknowledge him or anything. Why would you want to talk to the head of the Border Patrol? Because you don't want to hear what they have to say because he's going to tell you the truth, which is everything you're doing is a disaster. The Border Patrol chief before him, under Trump, I played his audio last week. He said that he was the head of the Border Patrol. He was in Border Patrol under former President Hussein Obama. Then under Trump, he was the head of the Border Patrol. He was the head of Border Patrol under Biden for a little bit, but Biden told him, he said, Biden, if you do this with all these policies you're telling us, it's going to be an absolute disaster. Biden didn't care. So he said he had to resign because he's like, I'm not going to do this. I can't do this. I retired early, he said to Fox, because I wanted to be able to tell the truth, the American people the truth, what's going on at the border. Now, so you hear their former Border Patrol Chief, Raul Ortiz, also saying the same thing, not one conversation with Biden or Harris. Pretty amazing, huh? We won in the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals in New Orleans today an appeal allowing us to implement our new law that allows us to arrest illegals as they come across the border and deport them. Since Joe Biden won't, he doesn't want this, he's fighting this. Well, he just took it after we won our victory in the 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal for now, saying we agree that Texas can do it. We'll hold it for 7 days pending an appeal to the Supreme Court if Joe Biden wants to. And Joe Biden went to the Supreme Court because he wants this invasion. This is his policy. Behold, massive illegal invasion from over the world. This is his policy. Terrorists, rapists, murderers, raping our daughters, our children, our women, and murdering our college students at UGA. This is Joe's policy. Behold. And so, of course, he filed an appeal with the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court didn't agree yea or nay, but they temporarily froze. This literally came out like an hour ago or less, in the past hour. The Supreme Court tonight just temporarily froze Texas' controversial illegal immigration law that would arrest him and deport him. So Samuel Alito, Justice Alito, issued the administrative hold, blocking it from taking effect till March 13th. So 9 days right now, temporary pause will give the court additional time to review the case, but doesn't necessarily signal which way they're leaning. Okay? Without intervention, the law would have gone into effect in 6 days from right now. Justice Department said it would profoundly alter the status quo. We want this invasion! We want 5 million, 10 million more illegals. They have actually outnumbered the 36 states in our entire union. Joe Biden has flooded our country with the illegal numbers that are higher than 36 of our states in the union. And Joe Biden wants to make it higher than 40 states in the union. He wants to import and replace 10 million. Well, he already has 10 million. He wants to replace 12, 15 million of us. He doesn't want this to stop. This is his policy. He's begging the Supreme Court, let this invasion stand. Let them feast on us and take us over. I want this. These are future Democrats. It will dilute the votes in Texas and all over this country. It'll give us more congressional seats in liberal sanctuary cities. We need this. And so the Supreme Court put it on hold through the 14th of this month. And if allowed to proceed, this is where we're at. Okay? Federal appeals court sided with us, but now today the Supreme Court puts it on hold. So there you go. We won't know till the 14th. That's it. Meantime, we have the CBS News doing a story on this today. Abbott defends his controversial border effort to deter illegals. And Abbott said to CBS, we're going to be barricading every area where people are crossing. Amen. That's working. We like that. There were so many people crossing over at Shelby Park and Border Patrol and such. They had an open air holding center. We got rid of that. We put up all the barbed wire and everything. And so you have a much, much smaller amount coming in. Soldiers on the U.S. side of the border aren't much of a deterrent, said one illegal to CBS. She fears the cartels in Mexico more. The cartels are your friend. Joe likes them. He enriches them. He wants them to be part of this. He likes them. Has Joe Biden ever called out the cartels in 3 years? No, they're his friends. They're helping this invasion happen. He will never criticize them. He will never go after them. They are his friends. And the next amount of friends are the NGOs that he's sending billions of dollars to. He tried to send $4 billion more of our money to them for this invasion. I want to ask you a few questions now. I want to hear from you. Call in at 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Do you think Texas, is winning the war and the narrative against the Democrats and this illegal invasion in our battle? Do you think the country overall is with us, Texas, too? I say us. I'm talking about our great state of Texas. Do you think we are winning the war and the narrative against the Democrats and this illegal invasion? And do you think the country overall is with us, too, here in Texas? 800-288-WBAP is our number. 800-288-9227. I want to hear from you right now. Also, coming up next, I want to get into Alejandro Mayorkas. He was on one of the Sunday shows, and he read directly from a letter when CBS News asked him about the death of Laken Riley. He didn't just talk. He read a statement from a letter. And also he was asked about whether her accused killer, should ever have been in the country. I'm going to play that soundbite for you. Coming up next, you're going to hear that. And we're going to talk about whether or not you trust this administration to protect you from the millions and millions of illegals who are in this country illegally and the millions more trying to invade our country right now. And do you feel that the Biden administration, is doing a good job of keeping you from harm, you and your family, your wife, your children, everybody? That's coming up next as well. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. This is the Chris Kroc Show on News Talk 820 WBAP, and now on FM at 93.3. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset, y'all. Let's hear a little audio of, we got so many little pieces here. Here's Alejandro Mayorkas as he reads a statement from the Biden administration. If I can get this particular link up. It'll take a second here, and let's go. Okay. Give me 1 second on this. Annoying. There we go. Okay, and then we'll get the same thing here. Stand by. I wanted you to hear this, though. This is Mayorkas. He's reading here we go. He's reading a letter instead of just answering the question from his heart or just from talking. And when asked about Laken Riley being killed by one of Joe Biden's illegals.
A 22-year-old nursing student, I know you've been following this, Laken Riley in the state of Georgia was murdered allegedly by an undocumented Venezuelan migrant. The suspect had been detained by Border Patrol upon crossing, released with temporary permission to stay in the country. He then went on allegedly to commit crimes twice, once in New York for driving a scooter without a license and once in connection with a shoplifting case in Georgia. Did those states and their law enforcement communicate to the federal government that this had happened? Should this man have been deported?
A few thoughts. First, Margaret, first and foremost, an absolute tragedy, and our hearts break for and our prayers are with the family, number one. Number two, and importantly, as a prosecutor, having prosecuted violent crime and other crimes for 12 years, one individual is responsible for the murder, and that is the murderer. And we work very closely with state and local law enforcement to ensure that individuals who pose a threat to public safety are indeed our highest priority for detention and removal.
But are you saying there that the federal government had been informed about this individual and the alleged crimes he had committed in those states? Because he could have been deported if that was the case. Was there a breakdown in the system?
So, Margaret, there are a number of cities around the country that have varying degrees of cooperation with the immigration authorities. We firmly believe that
New York did not?
We firmly believe that if a city is aware of an individual who poses a threat to public safety, then we would request that they provide us with that information so that we can ensure that that individual is detained if the facts so warrant.
So did you hear that literally Alejandro Mayorkas refuses to answer the question? Should this illegal ever have been allowed into the country? Will you admit that this accused killer, should never have been allowed into the country? And when asked about Lincoln Riley, he read a statement on a letter. He literally read a letter that he had there on the set. I mean, this is amazing, isn't it? It's profound. Then Bill Melugin from Fox News today said, wow, Raul Ortiz, who served as the chief of U.S. Border Patrol under Biden from August 2021 through May 2023, says he has never had a conversation with Biden or VP Kamala Harris. Think about how many high-profile events, Melugin writes. Think of how many high-profile events happened during that stretch. 15,000 Haitians under the Del Rio Bridge. False whipping narrative, which they never apologized for and never recanted. The end of Title 42, record-setting illegal crossings, and the White House allegedly doesn't speak to the chief overseeing 20,000 agents on the front lines. That's a problem, Ortiz told 60 Minutes. Let's play a little bit of that.
You don't just plant a flag just to plant a flag. It's got to be strategic, and it's got to make sense.
Raul Ortiz served as chief of the U.S. Border Patrol under President Biden and deputy chief under President Trump. He retired last year.
When agencies are making a decision based upon politics or whether they're going to get media coverage, hey, we're going to put all our personnel in this 2-mile stretch. What about the other 200 miles?
In our interview, Ortiz criticized Governor Abbott for not cooperating with the Border Patrol and playing politics with immigration. But he also expressed frustration with President Biden.
I've never had one conversation with the president or the vice president for that matter. And so I was the chief of the Border Patrol. I commanded 21,000 people. That's a problem.
I just saw 50 people today who had just crossed the border illegally. So something's not working.
We need to make sure that Central America, South America, Mexico, that those regions understand that if you pay a smuggler and you cross in between the ports of entry and you do not have a legitimate claim to some sort of asylum benefit, you're going to be sent back.
Do you believe that the White House has sent mixed messages to migrants?
Yeah, most definitely.
Oops! That's the Border Patrol chief under Biden for approximately 2 years. Never was talked to. They never approached him, never asked him any questions, never met with him. Nothing. Nada. Zip zilch. So, do you trust this administration, this Joe Biden administration, to protect you from the millions of illegals who are trying to invade our country? Do you trust them? And do you feel they're doing a good job of keeping you from harm? And your wife, your child. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. Line's wide open. And do you think that the country overall is with Texas, with us on our fight against all of this invasion? 800-288-9227 is our number. 800-288-WBAP. This is pretty profound. You heard a previous Border Patrol chief before Ortiz. It may have been the one before Ortiz or after Ortiz, but there was another Border Patrol chief. He was in the Biden administration as well, and he said that when he was told what Biden was going to do, I think he was there at the beginning of the administration because he was, I think, in charge with Trump, and when the new Biden administration came in and told him what they were going to do, he said, you can't do this, this is insane, it's going to be bad, and they ignored him. And then he decided to resign because he couldn't support this because he couldn't do his job. They wouldn't let him and tell us about it. He just spoke to Fox last week and before. I played the audio for you. It was pretty amazing how direct he was. Now you hear Ortiz, another Border Patrol chief under Biden, who is not the Border Patrol chief anymore, speaking the truth, saying they never met with me, never talked to me. In the meantime, you see that Bill Melugin has another message today. Brand new today, ICE in Boston arrested and deported a 62-year-old Brazilian illegal who was convicted of child rape in Brazil last year. After his conviction, he fled Brazil for here, the United States. Why not? Because Joe Biden will let you in. He entered New York under a tourist immigration visa under the Biden administration in April 2023. In May, Brazilian authorities issued a warrant for his arrest after he failed to appear to serve a 12-year sentence for child rape in November. So he was allowed to live in this country between May and November. May, June, July, August, September, October, November. That is 7 months where maybe he may have raped another child in America because Joe Biden's ICE is not hunting people down and deporting them because he won't let them do their jobs, nor will let Border Patrol do their jobs. So in November of 2023, about 4 months ago, ICE arrested him in Massachusetts, held him in custody until he was deported back to Brazil last month, where he was wanted by local authorities. So, and then one more piece to share this with you, as I ask you the question of, do you trust this administration to protect you from the millions of illegals who are trying to invade our country, and do you feel they're doing a good job keeping you from harm? They're not. They don't care. They're allowing this. It's part of Joe Biden's whole strategy to just flood our country with as many millions of illegals that are supposedly won't be able to get deported, and Trump's going to come in and get all of them out of here. That's why he is so important to this election, and why I think so many Americans are galvanizing around him now. It's unbelievable what's happening in our country. 800-288-WBAP is our number, 800-288-9227. Meanwhile, two severed heads, the New York Post reports. Two severed heads discovered in the same New York park where kids found a man's arm as cops probe if MS-13 was involved. Gee, do you think? These are brutal, vicious murders. MS-13 has been known to hack up bodies with machetes, say sources to the Post. Bodies were also found near where the gang has committed other crimes. Medical examiner will determine how and what they were cut up with. Joe Biden's America, another day. That's why they're afraid. That's why Joe Biden's afraid to go against Trump mano a mano, and quite amazing to watch the events today. Up next, are illegals hurting our companies and our economies? Sweeping piece in the Journal today about that. Are illegals hurting our companies and our economies? And do you think illegals help our companies and our economy even with lower prices, or do you think it's hurting us overall, our country, our companies, and our economy? Fascinating info on that next. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Make it a preset. 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. This article grabbed me, and I knew it would either bore me or hit me the right way, and it hit me the right way. So we're going to talk about it because I think a lot of people have, I believe, the wrong idea with illegal immigration. Especially living in a border state where there's a lot of illegals, whether it's under Joe Biden, Trump, Reagan, it doesn't matter, right? Because we have a ton of illegals who come into our country through because of our border being us being a border state. So I'll posit the question first for you to answer, and I'll tell you what my thoughts were before this, and then we get really in depth into this great little piece here. Do you actually believe that illegal immigration helps our companies and our economy, and even us with lower prices? Do you believe illegal immigration helps our companies and our economy and even us with lower prices, or do you think it hurts them overall? And would you like to see illegal immigration pared back from its levels under the Biden administration? 800-288-WBAP is our number. That's 800-288-9227. I have always been against illegal immigration, and I know that people say, well, get ready for the higher prices for fruit, whatever, labor on stuff with your house, or, the streets, the roads, anything like that. And they do all these construction jobs. I have always said that if I have to pay more for the same product, I gladly will, because if it employs Americans. And even saying to you many times over the past 20 plus years of my talk radio career, saying get ready if they're more expensive, but it'll be worth it. I support paying more if that's what it means. I don't care. I don't want illegals working in this country. I want them to leave. And there's nothing mean about it. It's just truthful. Well, now comes the Journal with a sweeping piece that was on the front cover in the Wall Street Journal. And here's the headline. You ready for this? Rich countries are becoming addicted to cheap labor. And we're in it. They also lump in Europe, for example. 1,000, here's a man in Wisconsin, 1,000-acre dairy farm. And they talk about this. Some economists actually say dependence on imported workers actually is approaching unhealthy levels. The amount of illegals we're depending on is approaching unhealthy levels, economists say, particularly in some places stifling productivity, growth, and helping businesses delay the search for more sustainable solutions for labor shortages. It is hurting us. It is slowing the process of replacing illegal immigrants with citizens, or businesses that should go out of business and shouldn't be kept alive because they're not profitable are being kept alive because of illegals. They're hurting innovation. They're propping up companies that are crappy companies that wouldn't exist without them, that shouldn't exist. And they're forcing companies to not move forward by hiring more efficient models, which include, whether it could be robots and AI, but it's stifling companies, it's stifling our economy, and it's hurting industries. Quote, once industry is organized in a certain way and the structure encourages employers to recruit illegals, it can be very hard to turn back, they say. Solutions could include bigger investments in automation, more radical restructuring, such as business closures, which are painful but may be necessary long term. Immigration, the Journal says, is now running 2 to 3 times above pre-pandemic levels across major destination countries, including Canada, Germany, UK, and the U.S. 3.3 million more illegals arrived than left last year, they said. 3.3 million more arrived than left last year. 3/4 of farm workers and 30% of construction and mining in the U.S. are illegals. 18% of the workforce in 2021 compared to 16% a decade earlier. We are increasing the amount of illegals filling jobs in our country overall. You know what that means we're doing? We're outsourcing our jobs to illegals. And that's not good. It is not healthy, many economists say in this Wall Street Journal piece. I'll ask again. Numbers 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Chime in right now. I want to hear from you. Do you believe illegal immigration helps our companies and our economy, even us with lower prices, or do you think it hurts them overall? And would you like to see illegal immigration pared back from its levels under the Biden administration? Here we go. The downsides of over-reliance on illegals, the Journal says. Increased reliance on low-skilled imported labor can lead to weaker productivity growth, which ultimately determines how fast economies can expand. We're hurting our economy. They talk about investing less in robots. It could keep weak firms alive, illegal immigration could, weighing on overall productivity. So in other words, the firms that should die are being kept alive by illegals. Let them die. Pain comes before good stuff. In Japan, listen to this. They compare the U.S. and U.K. farming sectors instead of Japan. Watch this. In Japan, where my son will be in Japan a week from Saturday for 5 months. In that great country, great ally of ours, and in Korea, where they have much more restrictive immigration policies, they increased their economy, their GDP increased by 1.5% last year. They increased by around 1.5% a year. So they're growing better and more than we are because illegals are making us stagnant. Going cold turkey, firing all these illegals could send prices for products made from illegals higher, but it would also leave many people in poorer countries with fewer options to pursue better lives. It would be a reverse magnet. They would get the hell out of here because they couldn't have a better life, because they couldn't get jobs making better, good money for them as illegals. High-skilled illegals versus low-skilled illegals. Here's an interesting juxtaposition. The high-skilled illegals, not illegals, but high-skilled legal migrants are valuable, as we all know. But the low-skilled are not valuable, they're saying. In Czech Republic, where 1/4 of my heritage is from, the rest is Polish. Ja mówię po polsku. Robots in the Czech Republic, they're using robots, check this out, to harvest and monitor strawberries. We pick your fruit. Get the hell out of here. If the Czech Republic can use robots to monitor and harvest strawberries, why aren't we? They also have, in Israel, fruit-picking drones. Why aren't we using drones to pick our fruit instead of illegals? Because it's being stifled by illegals. Us companies relying on illegals too much. Raspberry-picking robots also. In the UK, there's a company developing them. In Malaysia, foreign labor has created a detrimental cycle that allows companies to resist innovation. We're having the same thing here with our illegals. I'm going to pause it right there. But I want to ask you this. Got a little bit more left on this. This is fascinating, isn't it? Do you believe illegals are helping our companies and our economy, and even us personally, with lower prices? Or do you actually think it hurts us, our country, our companies overall in innovation? I want to hear from you right now. 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. That's next. Plus, after that, what we learned from Hunter Biden and James Biden's testimony to Congress. We got a lot more info on that coming up next.